We also need some getting down, Happy days are here. So I got that email that Amy sent out that showed the title of my talk, The Big Band, Life, and Where I'm Going for Lunch. Well, I saw that and I thought, well, wait a minute, that's not what I sent. And I checked my text, and it was what I sent her, but I meant to send her The Big Bang, the meaning of life and where I'm going for lunch. I thought, well, man, oh man, my little fingers are going so fast on that little phone, and I guess I messed up. However, it's interesting that in the book I referenced before, If This Isn't Nice, What Is, Dan Wakefield, another author and Hoosier native, noted that Kurt Vonnegut had once written that the function of the artist is to make people like life better than before. And when asked if he'd ever seen that done, he answered, yes, the Beatles did it. So I could talk for about, forever about what the Beatles have done, but I won't. Instead, I'm going to talk about the Big Bang, at least start out with that. And I don't mean the TV series, although that's pretty good. Anyway, and I'm going to share with you just kind of some things I've been thinking about lately. When Amy asked me if I'd like to come and give a talk here, I thought, yeah, captive audience. I get to talk about things I've been thinking about, and, who can lose? Well, you folks. Anyway, I've always been interested in physics and astronomy. So I've read a lot of books, articles, listened to podcasts about the subject, and here's what I've learned after years and years of listening and reading about physics, astronomy, and so on. I realize that I only understand about 5% of what I read. The rest of it, I don't know, but that 5% that I understand, that's pretty cool. And it's given me a basis to think about all kinds of weird and wacky things. By the way, if you're interested in podcasts, which I've kind of gotten into lately, some of the information I'm using today comes from a podcast called Philosophize This by Stephen West. Anyway, Kurt Vonnegut, in his address to the graduating class of 2004 at Eastern Washington University, summarized what I know from what I've read. He said, you know what they should put over the entrance to the physics department? Just one word: bang. This refers, of course, to that cosmic event, the Big Bang. According to the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA, some 13.7 billion years ago, there was a teeny tiny particle of matter that exploded and expanded at near light speed into everything in our universe. The Big Bang, although some scientists are referring to it as the Big Stretch, because it wasn't really that much of an explosion, it was more of a stretching out, so it's often called the Big Stretch. But the common understanding of the Big Bang was that there was this particle, and it exploded and shot out and creates everything that we have today and will have. And now, where did that particle come from? What happened before that particle appeared? Well, in the theory of the Big Bang, there was no time. Time didn't exist before the Big Bang, so you can't talk about anything before the particle, because before requires time, and there was no time. Does that sound confusing? I probably need to find another podcast to listen to. But more than 95% of scientists believe that the basic concept of the Big Bang is correct. English astronomer Fred Hoyle coined the term Big Bang in 1949, but it actually came from a paper that was written by, now my daughter speaks French, so she told me how to say this name. in a paper in 1931 by Georges Lemaitre. All right. And he was a Belgian cosmologist and a Jesuit Catholic priest. Now, boy, he tried to downplay any implications for religion, though, but he did believe that God must have created that little speck as the originating object, if you will, that resulted in the universe as we see it. Yet modern science finds no evidence of anything that caused the Big Bang. And once again, before the Big Bang is problematic, since no time existed before the Big Bang. A lot of people ask, how can that be? I mean, everything has to have some cause in order to come into existence, right? I mean, everything had to have something that caused it to be. I mean, what would you think if I handed you a smartphone loaded with all those really cool apps, and when you asked who made it, I told you, well, nobody made it. It just came about by itself out of nothing. You'd think I was crazy. Something can't come from nothing. Something must have brought all of this into existence initially. I needed a cause to come into existence. You needed a cause to come into existence. My parents and your parents needed a cause to come into existence. Every rock, tree, skunk, cat, every plant, and even Taylor Swift needed a cause to come into existence. I mentioned Taylor Swift because I hope the YouTube video of this goes viral. You know? And in theory, you can follow this causal chain that we've talked about all the way back to the very beginning. And you can say, well, if everything inside the universe needs a cause, why should the universe itself not abide by those same rules? Shouldn't it need a cause as well? But just because it doesn't seem to make sense that nothing caused everything, it doesn't mean that our own human experience applies to the universe. It may seem logical to us that something cannot come from nothing, because when we look around and we see evidence of that in everything that exists in this level of existence that we operate in, it may not be applicable to the universe as a whole. We have imperfect, limited human minds, and it may not make sense for us that this is the case. But it's hard. It's hard for us to wrap our minds around it. Not to mention, most of the people making the argument that something can't come from nothing have no problem conceiving of an uncaused and uncreated being that exists eternally. Many people believe that this uncaused cause is the originator of the universe. His name is God, and you can buy his book at Barnes & Noble. Now, I am not personally saying that there isn't a higher power, a God, or at least a spiritual element to existence and reality that existed before our universe came about. However, what I was thinking as I was thinking about stuff was that something definitely had to exist before the Big Bang. It had to. Maybe even before the Beatles came into existence. That something that existed before the Big Bang was, I was going to put a drum roll in here, potential. Potential. There had to be the potential for something to happen. The possibility that something as universal as the universe could potentially exist. So I started thinking, and I thought, well, maybe that's what God is. Potential. Not as an old man with a white beard sitting on a throne in some sort of heavenly existence, but as the element of potential. This potential is the potential that unfolds in the universe, including in our own lives. This non-personal understanding of God is not an unknown element in certain Christian theologies. As Amy mentioned, I received my Master's of Divinity or Master of Divinity degree from Christian Theological Seminary. If you don't know where that is, it's on the Butler University campus. Many of the professors at that seminary thought of themselves as process theologians. Process theology, which is based on the philosophy of English philosopher and mathematician Alfred North Whitehead, views God as not a static, unchanging being, but God as an ever unfolding process of experiencing, responding, and influencing the world. We experience something, we respond to that something, and our response influences the world in both small ways and in large. That process is God. Interesting, isn't it? God not as a separate being or entity, but as a process. The core idea is that reality, including God, is in a constant state of becoming and change. We change, we become, we change again, we become, and we change again. God, or I like to say that which is real or reality, responds to the choices and experiences of everything in our world. It reflects God's, or reality's, openness to the world and the impact of our free will. God, or reality, doesn't directly manipulate events out of outcomes, but in process theology, God, or reality, offers possibilities and lures us towards good. Now, that word lure is what Whitehead used and process theologians of years past used. And it's kind of a loaded word, and a lot of times we're not comfortable with what it means to lure something. But you get the idea that reality wants to entice or encourage or move us forward towards the good. I'll talk about that in a little bit. So imagine God like a gardener offering seeds, tending the soil, influencing potential growth, but not dictating the exact flower that blooms. So reality, or God, responds to the choices and actions of the world, including us humans, through a feedback loop, so to speak. You know, the world shapes God's consequent nature. God shapes the world in return and can substitute the world reality for the title God. God is a reality that encourages and tries to encourage us to fully live into our potential. So many philosophies and religions invite humans to improve our lives and the lives of others, and to recognize the process by which we can live better lives. For example, in Buddhism, they have develop what's called the Eightfold Path. This is the way in which Buddhists encourage us to look at life and to live life, the process of our living. The Eightfold Path, the first aspect of that path is right view, to cultivate an accurate understanding of reality. The second is to have right intention, developing wholesome intentions free from attachments to things that are fleeting, free from hatred and harmful desires. Right speech, using truthful, kind, and beneficial language, avoiding harmful talk. Right action, engaging in actions that avoid harming others physically, mentally, or emotionally. right livelihood, earning a living in a way that aligns with ethical principles and does not cause harm. Right effort, cultivating effort to develop positive mental states and eliminate negative ones. Right mindfulness, which is maintaining awareness of the present moment, thoughts, feelings, and actions. And finally, right concentration, developing focused and stable attention through meditation or other mindfulness methods. In the Hebrew Bible, in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 20, God is portrayed as laying out two paths to his people. And he says, choose this path. It will lead to life and blessings. Don't choose that path. That one's leading to death and cursing. Well, the idea is that God is there saying, use your potential. Live into your potential for good. Now, in the Christian Bible, Paul, in his letter to the Galatians, referred to specific fruits of the Spirit. Fruit means produce or the results. And spirit, in both Hebrew and Greek, means breath or wind. So the results then, the produce of living into the breath of God or entering into the process of life and its potentials should result, according to that verse in Galatians, the fruit of the Spirit, which is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. As an aside, many people may respond, well, that sure doesn't characterize much of Christianity today. It's no wonder that the late John Shelby Spong, who was a bishop in the Episcopal Church, once wrote, the church is like a swimming pool. Most of the noise comes from the shallow end. I love that. I love that quote. I've only used it maybe 5 times here. So, So in each decision or action we take, we are living in the realm of potential. But it's up to us. How will we live? What potentialities will we make real? I can't help but think that this has something to do with the question, what is the meaning of life? What are the potentials, the possibilities for meaning in my life? Well, the psychologist Viktor Frankl, writing in the book, The Way of Meaning, says that the meaning of life is to give life meaning. Oh, wow. I read that, I had to write it down. The meaning of life is to give life meaning. To find the possibilities and the potential for us. We have the potential to give our lives meaning, to live a life of meaning. And the decisions that I make lead me towards the greatest potential for good, for me and for the world I find myself in. Even my decision as to where I'm going to go for lunch. Right? I knew I'd get there eventually. Right? I mean, will I have a healthy lunch? Or will I go and order those 4 large orders of fries at Burger King, even though they're so good? What choices will I make that will lead me into the potential for the greatest good? Will I express love to my fellow humans, or will I sow division? Will I do things that bring harm to my environment, or can I live in such a way that honors the planet and the humanity that lives upon it? So, what is God? Well, I don't know. But I love this idea that God is encouraging me to live into the reality of possibilities and potential. Well, that's all I got. So, bang. Or if you prefer, stretch.